So let's start off with Dr. Roberta Schomburg. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be here this evening. I'm Roberta Schomburg, and I'm Associate Dean at the School of Education at Carlow University. And I'm also Vice President of the National Association for the Education of Young Children. So I'm really pleased.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Ernie Dettore. I'm with the University of Pittsburgh Office of Child Development, and I want to share my welcoming to you too. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Hug, professor at California University of Pennsylvania, and it's great to be here with Curious George.
And I'm Michelle Figlar, the Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children. And I welcome you all here tonight, and I'm humbled to be a part of this panel with such wonderful, wonderful, knowledgeable colleagues. So thank you for coming.
All right, let's start off with the first question. We're going to direct that over to Jennifer. Now that we've previewed the Curious George series, what resources are available for early childhood teachers that support the show?
Absolutely. Can I borrow this? Sorry.
Thank you. PBS, as you likely know, has vast resources for the K-16 classroom, but of particular interest is our cadre of content focused on pre-K and K learning, as well as science, especially focused on these three key areas: literacy, science and math, and social and emotional wellness. The names and titles will be familiar to you: Cat in the Hat, Martha Speaks, Super Y, Sesame Street. Companion resources such as PBS Teachers, PBS Parents, PBS Kids Island, and Teacher's Domain are all resources that focus the entire PBS lineup, including Curious George. But in addition, we have been working the entire summer to create a new and unique asset for Pittsburgh, getcuriouspittsburgh.org, with the Children's Museum, which is currently focused on curriculum like you have in your packets, the videos you saw, parent tips, games that foster learning, and so much more. And the extension of this website in the coming months will be shaped by our partners like you and like these panelists, but will include more about curiosity, especially from Sesame Street, Cat in the Hat, and other shows that foster scientific thinking, problem solving, and curiosity.
Excellent, great. So for the rest of the panel, Michelle, Bill, Roberta, and Ernie, what other resources are available around developmentally appropriate practice, early childhood technology, science for early childhood teachers that you can speak to that would complement what we just saw here in the premiere? So feel free to chime in.
I guess one of the first things I was thinking about as I watched this episode is that George is often outside exploring the world in which he lives. And so what that makes me think about is going outside the classroom and using local resources like city parks, state parks, zoos, all those kinds of facilities that have great educational programs that teachers can tap right into. And if you don't have the opportunity to get on a bus and go to one of the places, there's probably a place right down the sidewalk outside the classroom to explore the world in which George lives and we live.
Ernie?
I just wanted to add to that, I think that the new standards, the new Pennsylvania Early Learning Standards are really fabulous in that they foster creativity, thinking, discovery, exploration, curiosity, all the things that Curious George has displayed in these videos. And just by looking at the standards and just going outside or just going out in the backyard are fabulous opportunities, I think, for children. And we can't underestimate the value of a visit of a potato bug, if you will, or something to a backyard. It's just amazing. But getting the kids outside, I think, is extremely important. Thank you.
I think the question, what other kinds of resources, I guess I'd like to just frame that a little bit differently, and then I can talk about some other resources. But I think what we're seeing in today's world is that technology and media is just one more tool. And I often say to people that Maria Montessori's materials were maybe some of the first technologies, or Froebel's gifts, the blocks that he created were early technologies. And so I think when we think about media and technology, we really have to think about it as one tool that we can use among many in our classrooms. And when we think of the joy that Curious George has brought to millions of children over the years in the books, now we have a new way for children to enjoy the stories that are being told. That being said, I think then we can begin, if we begin to look at the various digital materials that are out there. When I was on sabbatical recently, I was working with the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning in Children's Media. And they're actually developing some materials that are available, that will be available probably next November to help caregivers and teachers of young children in an interactive way. And then, of course, the work that Family Communications has been doing in collaboration with WQED, I think, are great resources to extend those programs that have been, those programs and those books that have already been so important to children.
Excellent.
I think just wrapping all of that up, just an event like tonight where Pacey is very honored to be able to support the vision of WQED and the Children's Museum to really bring professional development to you in just a totally different format. I mean, that's what we see our role as. We're not the experts in technology or in science or in math, but we are the place that looks to try to reach out to the community resources and bring it to the teachers. And I'll have to say that there's no better place, I think, to be able to do this work than here in the Pittsburgh region. We have this beautiful Children's Museum. We have WQED. We have CalU working on a fantastic project around science education. You get to sit next to Roberta Schomburg and Ernie Dettore, which humbles me each time, so thank you for that. But you have places like the Carnegie Museum. There are things, and the parks, and the AV area. You have things that you may not be able to get your children to, but that can come to you. So it's a matter of finding those resources and then utilizing them. And I think we're really trying to look at professional development in a way that we find the experts in the community and we serve as the conduit to bring it out to the folks who are teaching children each and every day. So, I mean, that's really what we're about. And I think technology, as scary as it can be sometimes when it doesn't work, right? Anyone ever have a PowerPoint not start when you needed it to? I think it really can bridge sort of like, how do we know what's happening out there? And I think, like Roberta said, it's just another tool, and we need to think about it that way. I'm waiting for the modern housekeeping to happen, right? So when I drop my child off, and a couple of my children's teachers are here tonight, so that's also intimidating. I think there's an ironing board and an iron in that housekeeping. They will never see me do that. So I think we need to have some broken iPhones, if any of them have ever broken, and put those in housekeeping areas, because good or bad, that's what my kids see me do every day. So just something to think about.
Well, let me be that conduit and throw it out to the audience. Is there any burning question that you want to ask the panel regarding the resources that are available in the community, as it would relate to Curious George? Anybody have any questions? All right, well then let's jump on to our second question. How might early childhood teachers use resources to scaffold a child's learning, which encompasses the whole child and incorporates the PA early learning standards?
That's a whole new.
Okay, let me look at this one. right, tell me again, David. I don't have my glasses on. I'm thinking backwards. The early learning standards,
how it could help scaffold a child's learning. How could a teacher use the resources to scaffold a child's learning?
Well, one of the things that I think we have to remember with any media, whether it's books or whether it's digital, other kind of digital video, like Curious George, is that it's best when it's mediated through the conversations with an adult. And so I think one of the first things I would do in thinking about how I would use this would be to do the same thing I do with the book. Let the children talk about what it was they saw, what it was they heard, not asking questions, you know, who did this, but really giving them a chance to talk about it the way we would when we read a book too. And I think that kind of integration is really critical as we think about different kinds of media that we may be using in our classrooms.
Excellent. Anybody else on the panel want to chime in on the scaffold?
I think it really is that sort of being intentional and present, especially with video media. So to sort of think differently about how we may have watched television as a child or even as an adult. Sometimes you just need at the end of the day to go home and sort of veg out in front of the television. But I think really thinking about media in a way that it is like a book that comes to life. It can really scaffold the questions that children may have about things. I think it gives you opportunity both as a teacher and a parent to really draw on the child's interest. And I think it's also can be really helpful, especially for parents when they might just not know what to ask. I even struggle with that at sort of the end of the day. But I think we need to just frame television in a whole new way, that it's not something that we just look at, it's something that we interact with. And I think as teachers, if we embrace it that way, then we can scaffold lots of concepts because the children can see it, they can hear it, and then you can even act it out. So it gives you as a teacher and a parent different mediums to build on instead of just only the print word or just only pictures. You can add other forms of medium. So I think it's being intentional and us as a field framing, watching media differently.
To tag right on to that, when I was watching the episode, I was struck by when Curious George was acting like a duck. And so he was acting like a monkey and then acting like a duck. And to piggyback on what Michelle said, that would be an episode for me in which you could get the class involved in the whole child acting out different kinds of animals, and maybe even acting out how they progress from babies to adults and hatching out of eggs and all that. And that could be really powerful. And so I think of specific examples like that. So imagine yourself reading through the standards several times and then sitting down and watching the episode of Curious George, looking for ways to connect it to the standards.
Excellent. And I think we can jump over to Ernie because I think he can talk about the creative aspect for the play.
So to add to that, like I would use that, I really like that sound George tapes as well. Children, the youngest ages, like to experiment with sound. So in using that as a springboard for an activity on sound and looking for various parts of the building, inside, outside, whatever, under something, behind something, and having children predict, because when you talk about science, science is prediction. You come up with a hypothesis. I wonder what my voice is going to sound like if I yell into this cup or if I yell into this megaphone or whatever. But to use that and let kids just experiment with sound and just playfully experiment with it, with pots, pans, plastic, wood, whatever they want to do, and just let them have a great time doing it.